Okay, picture this. Imagine you've got two managers. One walks into a room and instantly starts barking orders, totally convinced they know absolutely everything. The other manager walks in, takes a look at the team, and just asks a few really good questions. Which one would you rather work for?
Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating question. What actually makes someone a great leader? And maybe more importantly, why do some incredibly smart people fail miserably at leadership while others build these amazing, world-changing teams? We're going to break down the science, the psychology, and the proven habits of the best leaders in the world. Okay, let's dive into this because this simple comparison right here, it's basically the heart of our entire explainer. When you look at Manager A, you're seeing that classic, old-school model of management. It's all about direction. It's about control. But Manager B represents a massive paradigm shift. As you'll see, great leadership isn't really about having all the answers at all. In fact, relying on yourself to always be the smartest person in the room is a guaranteed recipe for failure. Great leadership is actually about asking the right questions. Section 1. Leadership versus authority. To figure out how to actually get there, we first need to completely dismantle a myth that holds back so many promising careers. We've got to look at the fundamental difference between leadership and authority. Because, spoiler alert, holding a fancy title does not automatically make you a leader. Looking at research from Napoleon Hill's classic work, it highlights a really critical truth. An efficient leader leads by encouraging, not by instilling fear. So a manager who is constantly trying to impress you with their title or their authority, they're actually just leading through force. And honestly, relying on a title is a massive red flag. It's usually just a shield they use to cover up a pretty profound lack of true capability and vision. And this brilliantly illustrates a really profound historical concept. If we dig into the Latin root for the word authority, auctoritas, it doesn't actually mean to rule over or to command. It literally means to increase or augment. I love that. True leadership is the act of increasing the capacity of the people around you. It's about earning respect and developing others, not just resting on title-based power. Section 2. Managing Thyself. Peter Drucker. But here is the catch. Before you can increase the capacity of anyone else, before you can lead a team, a division, or a whole company, you've got to start way closer to home. You have to manage yourself. To understand this, we're turning to Peter Drucker, who is universally recognized as one of the greatest management thinkers in history. In his foundational book, The Effective Executive, Drucker lays out the absolute non-negotiable realities of leadership and effectiveness. Drucker proposed this brilliant concept called the law of organized performance. Basically, he stated that the ratio of a leader's performance to those on their team remains constant. Think about that for a second. The leader sets the absolute baseline. If you want the average performance of your team to go up, you have to improve your own performance first. You have to ruthlessly manage your own time, focus on the outward contribution you're making, and radically shift your vocabulary from I to we. Section 3. Bill Campbell's Team First. So let's see how this builds when we apply it to team dynamics. When a leader has finally managed themselves, how do they approach the group? For this, we look to the legendary coach of Silicon Valley. I'm talking about the book $1 Trillion Coach, written by Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Alan Eagle. And the subject of that book, Bill Campbell, well, he wasn't your typical tech executive. He actually started his career as a middle school football coach. Yet he went on to mentor some of the most successful founders and CEOs in modern history. What's wild is that Campbell treated these corporate titans exactly the same way he treated his football players, with tough talk, an absolute demand for teamwork, and sincere, unmistakable love. Campbell's whole philosophy rested on 3 pillars: trust, complete candor, and intense loyalty. He firmly believed that you simply cannot be a good manager without being a genuinely caring coach. The team is the whole shebang. In fact, he had a really specific rule for what he called aberrant geniuses. You know, those incredibly high-performing but super difficult team members? He believed they should only be tolerated if, at the end of the day, they still put the team first. If they didn't, they had to go. Section 4. Building the coaching habit. So, if being a coach is absolutely essential to being a leader, how do you actually do it in the day-to-day grind? I mean, how do you coach someone when you have 100 emails to answer and deadlines breathing down your neck? Michael Bungay Stanier tackles this exact problem in his book, The Coaching Habit. He recognized that busy managers constantly default to an old-school trap, telling people what to do rather than asking them, and just solving problems for them rather than helping them figure it out. So the crucial point is this: entirely new habit. Say less, ask more. Sounds simple, right? Actually, it's incredibly difficult to master. It's the practice of respectful inquiry. When you stop just handing out advice and start asking targeted, curious questions, you reduce your team's dependency on you. You build their courage. You literally increase their capacity, which, as we learned earlier, is the true definition of authority.
Section 5. What great leaders actually do.
When we synthesize all of this, Drucker's self-management, Campbell's team-first coaching, and Stanier's habit of inquiry, we get a really clear, actionable picture of what a great leader does on a daily basis. Here's the blueprint. Great leaders create absolute clarity so everyone knows the goal. They listen intensely to their people. They don't shy away from making the really hard decisions, and they give useful, candid feedback. Most importantly, they develop their people, delegating not just tasks but real authority. And finally, they take complete responsibility when things go wrong, putting the organization's needs far above their own ego.
Section 6. The worst leadership mistakes. But, we also have to address the dark side. Because we all know highly intelligent, super competent people who step into management and just create absolute disasters. Why does that happen? Well, for a pretty sobering look at organizational politics, we turn to The Dictator's Handbook by Bruce Bueno de Mesquita and Alastair Smith. This research pulls back the curtain on why smart leaders sometimes make incredibly destructive decisions for their teams.
The terrifying truth of organizational politics is that for insecure leaders, the objective isn't actually ruling well. It's simply keeping their power. In a toxic environment, a highly competent team member isn't seen as an asset. Actually, scratch that. They're viewed as a dangerous rival. This leads bad managers to surround themselves with mediocre yes-men just to protect their own status.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these toxic traits actually manifest in everyday office life. Grandiose leaders rely on their own untested hunches rather than data or team input. They micromanage out of a deep-seated fear of losing control. They take credit for the wins, pass the blame for the losses, and completely confuse sheer busyness with actual, effective productivity. It creates this deeply dysfunctional culture where everyone is just surviving, not thriving.
Which brings us to the ultimate test of your leadership. It isn't how impressive you look when you're standing at the head of the boardroom table, dictating orders. No way. The true test of a leader is what happens when you leave the room. Does your team freeze up and wait for your next command? Or do they continue confidently, making smart decisions and collaborating effectively without you? That right there is the ultimate proof that you have truly augmented their capacity. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about building an environment where the best answers can organically emerge from your team. So I want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on today. What is one quality you've experienced in a truly great leader, or perhaps one you desperately wished your leader had? Think about that for a bit. And more importantly, think about how you can step into the responsibility of being the coach your team needs right now.